As women age, their natural instinct to care goes into overdrive. They believe that they're responsible for the health and well being of everyone associated within their support system. So much so that their own personal health is often neglected. However, as they get older, it's important for them to make their own personal health a top priority. According to my friends over at the National Institute of Health, they report that middle aged women's ability to lose weight as they age becomes increasingly more difficult. The Institute says that weight gain is associated with a decline in lean muscle mass in middle aged women. The proportion of lean mass is positively associated with BMR, a component of energy, expenditure, slow metabolic rate in menopausal women, decreases their capacity to effectively burn calories, which in turn would positively promote an effective calorie balance. For Rahir, this is an issue that she deals with on a daily basis. She is a health coach for middle aged women, helping them to lose weight, get stronger, and boost energy by leveraging muscle mass and mindset work. Rahir has an interesting story of her own to share. She's gone from a wheelchair to a weightlifting podium. She was diagnosed with MS more than 10 years ago, just as she was turning 50, all while she was in the process of winning a European Masters weightlifting championship. Her story has inspired women to build muscle and use their own personal health journey as an elixir and a source of salvation. And Rahir stopped by the program this week all the way from Madrid, Spain, to have an international conversation about the importance of women's health in midlife, the overcoming of obstacles, the promotion of inclusion, and so much more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. If you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to talk to you about how you help women, middle-aged women, value their health. Great to see you today, and thank you so very much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate, the opportunity to talk to you and have a great conversation.
Absolutely. Now, Kim, I know you work with middle-aged women as a health coach to help them in their weight loss journey. So I'm wondering if we can start our conversation by you telling me why you love what you do and what makes you so fabulous.
Yeah, I'm really passionate about this because I use an approach that's not very common for women. It's pretty simple and straightforward. It's all about, building muscle, conserving your muscle mass, and maintaining it. But it's not something that in our culture is associated with women are with women's health. We have other notions. We are brought up, thinking we should be cute and tiny and elegant and pretty. And physical strength is never really taught as a value or a virtue to women. It is expected, however, because when you're a mother, I mean, women are bodybuilders, like literally, right? They build bodies. So they must be strong. And it's considered totally normal also to carry 2 toddlers in your arms and take groceries home. But being strong in itself is not like this kind of value that we're taught. So this is my approach when women reach out to me, because they cannot lose the stubborn weight. And this happens in middle age, when you realize all the stuff that you've been doing forever, for years, for decades sometimes. Harsh dieting in May, you just live on soup for the entire month of May so you can look good in your summer clothes in June. These things don't work anymore. And they don't work anymore because, when you go through a lot of harsh dieting, your metabolism sort of, it doesn't shut down, but it really slows down, because it's thinking, oh my God, nothing is coming in here in terms of energy. So I better go slowly so I don't need as much energy. And that creates the famous yo-yo cycle, where your machine, your engine becomes smaller every time you diet. So when you go back to eating normally, you feed your engine too much fuel because it has shrunk. Whereas when you go do the whole sort of weight loss or weight management approach in the spirit of building, of nourishing, of thinking, what does my body actually need to perform, to function properly, and just accept that building muscle is your biggest health insurance. Yes, it works very well. Like, my clients, they lose weight and they feel great and they become stronger. But most of all, it really changes the mindset and the paradigm, because you're not in this culture of wanting to shrink or to destroy or to reduce or to restrict. You're in a spirit of building and nourishing, and that is just so much more positive, and positive feedback for the brain. And that's why it's easier to keep going and stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kim, whether it be middle aged or getting older just naturally as women, why do you think it's particularly important for middle aged women to make their health a priority?
Well, it's pretty typical for women, and I hear that all the time, when they go through their lives looking after everyone and everything, and somehow forgetting their self-care in the process. Things like, working out regularly or getting proper sleep is a big one. And then when you reach middle age, and then maybe perimenopause hits, and all of a sudden you don't feel like yourself anymore. You start wondering what's going on here. And you realize that you have been so busy looking after everyone else that you have forgotten about yourself. And that can be quite daunting, because if you haven't had this habit of self-care for a long time, it's often difficult to find out, where do I start? How do I even do this? And how do I sort of rid myself of this knee-jerk reaction that we women have? We have knee-jerk reactions of wanting to help everybody around us, which is great. But when you age, and when you start feeling some kind of fatigue, when you don't have the same energy levels, when you struggle getting out of bed in the morning, you can't help the people around you as well anymore. And that sort of questions not only like your physical ability, it's also a matter of your identity, because we tend to define ourselves also as the person who's like the backbone of our families, our communities, everyone around us. And I think, even though this is probably a cultural thing, that women are like these nurturing people, always looking after everyone, it doesn't matter how you want to interpret this. It's been women my age, it's been a fact of their lives, and it's hard for them to realize that they need to change something about their behaviors or their priorities. And it might be counterintuitive because they always want to help everybody else. And now is the time when they realize they need to help themselves first, like on the plane when they say, put on your oxygen mask first and then help others. And that's the situation you get to as a middle-aged woman. And it's a big change and it can be very hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Kim, you've got quite the story, personal story yourself. I know that after being diagnosed with MS about 10 years ago, as you were turning 50, and you were winning a master weightlifting championship. So tell me about your personal journey and how it's impacted the person you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had 3 small kids. I had a job. I was happy, and then this disease sort of struck me down out of the blue. And it's very scary. Everything is open. You don't know what the future brings. And you get all sorts of treatment. I was prescribed a treatment that you had to inject 3 times a week, and it made you feel like you had the flu. It was very unpleasant. But there's one thing that I did when that happened, and it was I did not want to have the mindset of a sick person. I just wanted to live my life and do whatever I could do. And I do have lesions in my spine and in my brain. But after a while, I realized that I could move normally, and I decided that I was going to go back to training, go back to the gym. And that's also when I started to train in a spirit of building. I wanted to build myself back up. I had gone to the gym before, but it was always in this, trying to look good, trying to look after your weight and your body shape. And the change came after, being in a wheelchair. Your legs are atrophied, and you want to build yourself back up instead of shrinking or dieting or anything. And it helped me feel so much better so quickly. It was physical. Yeah, I got stronger and noticeably stronger, but it's also mentally. You just feel more confident when you feel physically strong. And I talked to my doctors, and first they said, to be careful with exercise. They're not really quite sure. Can they let you go out there and do stuff? I think it's not really their expertise or their method of choice when it comes to healing people. But every time I checked in with them, they saw that I was getting stronger and better. And I loved it so much that at some point I switched from just normal weight training in the gym. I switched to Olympic weightlifting, which is very technical. There's just 2 movements. You lift the bar overhead in the snatch in 1 single movement, and in the clean and jerk in 2 movements. And I started learning that at the tender age of 55. I love the challenge because it's a mix of strength and technique, and it's lifelong learning, which is something that I really appreciate. And
Yeah,
this has
continue.
sorry, yeah, this has today I'm actually grateful for my illness because it really changed my mindset, my attitude. I do not get upset or worked up about things that used to take so much importance before I was ill. I really appreciate every single day that I have on this planet, and I live in the full awareness that everything can be, taken away from me from one day to the next, like it had happened before when I was hospitalized from one day to the next. And this is not something that scares me. It actually makes me grateful for being here. And it's something that I want to share, that we can always live today. I know that so many people are worried, and many women my age are worried. Oh my God, I'm getting older. What's going to happen? I'm becoming invisible. And when you focus on today and do whatever it is that you can do today, I feel that you can live a fulfilled life. And this is something that I want to share with the women I work with. And yes, most of the time they come to me for weight loss, but they realize very soon that it's about so much more. It's about living with your values, living your life to the fullest, living your potential, not hiding. And the weightlifting part is very significant for me because it's masters competitions. It's like old people meeting for competitions, and you're a master from 35 years onwards. So it's it's like a bit of fun for older people, but it's a situation like in weightlifting. You step out on a platform. The lights are on, your name is called, and you go out there and you have to do your thing. You cannot hide behind anyone. And to experience that is scary, but it's also exhilarating. And it means that, even as a middle-aged woman, I mean, I turned 60 this year, you can still have this spice of life where, you leave your comfort zone and you come back and you feel better for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kim, I have to tell you, you look fabulous for just turning 60, by the way. So whatever you're doing is working, okay?
Thank you so much. That's very kind of you.
So, and Kim, I'm curious to get your thoughts on the power of both resilience and perseverance, because as you know, I was born with cerebral palsy, and I've been confined to a wheelchair for all of my life, getting around places, and I use a walker for exercise. But I always tell people that the reason that fitness is important to me is because it's something I prioritize. And, as a result of my disability, if I don't exercise, my muscles shrink or contract faster than most people. So tell me about the power of perseverance and resilience from your view and how it's related to exercise.
Yes, I think, and this is something that I'm always fighting in all my messages and everything that I share. Many people think that something like resilience or perseverance or discipline or willpower are like innate character traits, like something that you have or you don't have. Whereas I think that it's something that you build for yourself. I think resilience is like a network actually of support points. I often speak with women who tell me, 10 years ago, I felt great. I had a personal trainer. I worked out with them 3 times a week. I was in great shape and I felt fantastic. And then they moved away. They moved town and I was left with nothing. And for me, that is a lack of resilience in the sense that you have only one point of support and one knot doesn't make a net. You can build a resilience net by having many different points of support, many different knots in your net of support. And that's not only exercise. Exercise is one part of this, but it's your community, your family, your nutrition, your how you treat your mind, your lifelong learning, reading, all these things that you have in your life that you cultivate, that you enjoy, that you practice. They form like knots of a net. And then if one thing falls away, like your trainer moves away, or I don't know, you move yourself, or something changes in your life, you still have a net of support because you haven't just counted on one point of support, but you have knitted this thing with many knots, and you can't fall because the other parts of the net, they will catch you. And I think it's really important to understand that this is something that you can build, that you can develop, and that it's not because you know you have a flawed character that you do not have resilience, or because you know feel you don't have willpower. We always tend to attach like some kind of moral judgment to things that when you break them down are actually skills that you can learn. And I think that's quite liberating, because living with the idea that something doesn't work in your character, that you have a flawed personality, that must be extremely frustrating. Whereas when you can see it as a skill that you can learn and build, then it's up to you and you can do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you also say that building muscle and becoming strong doesn't have to be exclusive to men, and it can actually be an elixir for women to take control of their lives. And I want to go also back to something you said earlier about building muscle is your best health insurance. So tell me why women should really embrace the idea of building muscle, and why is it not exclusive only to men? I'm fascinated to get your answer there.
Yes. Well, most people, when you talk about lifting weights or building muscle, we still have this 70s folklore, of Schwarzenegger pumping iron in the gym. And even though I practice Olympic weightlifting, some people say, well, you are bodybuilding. And, this is really this imagery of half naked guys in the gym sweating and pumping iron is still very present. So women tend to think, yeah, this is not for me. I would never go there. I would not feel comfortable. But women do lose muscle mass at a rate of 3 to 8% per decade after 30. So they become weaker if they do not counter that evolution. And becoming weaker means at some point in your life that you're going to be prone to falls, that you're going to have joint aches, that you're going to have back pain. And further on, you will actually lose your independence. The longevity is really tightly linked to functional independence, which can be measured through strength. Some researchers actually just measure grip strength to find out about people's functionality. And I always use the example of, you want to be able to open a pickle jar, right? And it's got nothing to do with looking like Arnold. It's more like being able to get out of a chair or to open a pickle jar, to keep your independence. And as women, because of the drop in estrogen, we are prone to losing muscle mass pretty fast. And you really need to counter that. You need to fight that decay if you want to stay fit and healthy. And there's so many other health benefits to muscle that we are discovering right now. And over the last years, we thought it was just about bone strength, for example. It's another big thing for women, and about muscular skeletal health, but it's actually also about metabolic health, and it's about mental health too. This is something that's been found time and time again, that strength training will actually reduce symptoms of anxiety, depression, things like this. So it's like a very well-rounded tool, and I love the simplicity of it. And I think it's very important to mention that you do not need to go to a gym to do that. You can stay at home and work with your body weight and become strong and muscular, and help your health along.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kim, I'm a pretty practical person, and I live my life through the prism of practicality as much as I can. So if I told you that I was going to give you $1 million to produce a commercial about the practical steps that women can take to really optimize their health, what points do you think you would emphasize in the commercial?
Well, I would certainly first of all, show how easy it is to start in your own home, to make it like really accessible and easy to imitate, to repeat. And then I would just list all the benefits that you get from being muscular, from feeling strong, from standing straight, from carrying yourself with confidence, to really great metabolic health markers, no problems with insulin resistance or diabetes 2 or being pre-diabetic, and then of course the mental health benefits. I would actually just end with the slogan, building muscle will make you happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kim, I know that you have a former background as a journalist. So tell me, how does your former background as a journalist and in communications help you communicate more effectively with your clients?
Oh yeah, that's a great one. It's pretty, it's not only easy for me, it's fun for me to write things like resources for my clients. I enjoy organizing webinars for them where I share all the latest stuff that I learn about health and fitness. I love putting information into words, and I think that's a big part of journalism, and that's something that I always enjoyed, is looking at the complexity of our world, looking at the complexity of everything that's out there. And if you have read anything about health and fitness online ever, you know how much complexity is out there, how much overwhelming information. And taking that complexity and boiling it down into simple sentences, and also simpler concepts that you can understand and that you can then transfer into simple tools of daily use, is something that totally fascinates me, and I love it. It's a daily challenge to go and find these complex connections, and then really strip them of everything that is not necessary, and then find the words to put that into a simple sentence that makes sense and that will be helpful for my clients. So I feel that in a way, I have always been on a journey to what I'm doing now. Even when I was a journalist before, what I learned as a journalist is helping me so much now, and really just putting things into simple words that make sense to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Kim, I'm fascinated to ask you about your perspective when it comes to the concept of self improvement and the importance of women really knowing their value and what they stand for. So tell me about your perspective on the concept of self improvement and knowing your value. What are your thoughts there?
I think it's a tricky subject for women, because many women have a very self-critical stance, and when they think about self-improvement, I think they have this attitude of thinking of everything that they lack and that they sort of have to compensate, instead of thinking that they are a full, lovable, great person, and that self-improvement just means to explore and then exploit your potential, discover new things in life that could be fun, discover new skills, discover new sensations, new situations, and really respect yourself the way you are. And just because you want to improve doesn't mean that you are not fine the way you are now. I think this is really a very difficult one to get your head around. We tend to think we're lacking this, we're not doing right here, we can't do this. And I think that's not what self-improvement is about. Self-improvement is not about finding all your flaws and faults and then sort of filling the holes. It's really, looking at who are you today, and who would you love to become in a loving and aspiring way.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kim, I want to go back to the concept of resilience just for a moment because you're saying we can use resilience as a safety net towards prosperity. So tell me about why we should consider using resilience as a safety net.
Because we as humans are always subjected to life and stuff that happens to us, right? And many people live in fear of uncertainty and things that might arrive. And I think it's a natural state of a human being to have fear, because that's what helps us survive. It has helped us, survive for thousands and thousands of years. Fear is like a sensor that makes us shy away from things that might be dangerous. And to build that safety net in the awareness that you cannot stop life from happening, but you can have points of support that you can count on and that you can fall back on. I think it will help you mitigate the fear, and it will help you live more and dare more, do more things, because you know that you have that net. And even though you're aware that you can, not stop life from happening, you know that you're not alone and that you have a bit of a safety net, and then you can be courageous enough to do more things. There's an image that I like a lot also that some people use in when it comes to raising children. And it's the image of life as a very, very broad, wide bridge over a deep water. And you need like a barrier or a fence at the outside of that bridge, because if there is no restriction and the bridge is just in the open, as a child, what do? You either explore and you could fall off the bridge, or you stay like anxiously just in the middle and you don't see even half of what the bridge has to offer. So if we have these sort of barriers or boundaries that help us, we can, inside these barriers that make us feel safe, explore much more of life and be more courageous in finding and discovering new things.
Yeah, and Kim, I'm fascinated to ask you about the notion of prosperity and the promise of prosperity, because in today's world, Kim, depending on what kind of lens you view the world from, it can sometimes get distorted or sometimes get blown out of proportion or taken out of context. So, in your view, my friend, how do you view the promise of prosperity? What does that mean to you?
Well, that's actually, I think this is also a tricky one, because first of all, it depends on how you define prosperity. And for me, it is like the potential and the possibility, the opportunity to become the person that you want to be. So many people, when they hear prosperity, they probably think, it's about getting rich. I think, prospering is actually living your potential, becoming who you want to be, and growing as a person as much as you like. That's the first part of the promise of prosperity. What's prosperity for you? And be very clear about this. The promise part is tricky too, because you have to ask yourself, who's making the promise? If you think that you are promised prosperity, you create expectations, which are sometimes very difficult feelings. If you have expectations, there's a lot of risk of, being disappointed. If you are the person who makes the promise to yourself, then it's different, because then you can have this relationship with yourself, and I am promising myself that I can become the person that I want to be. And there's no resentment because you think, some outside person or entity promised something and then not kept it. If the promise comes from you, then I think it can be very empowering.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kim, what do you think is the key to creating great health habits? What do you think the key is there?
I think it's starting small. I think that's really the most important part. Um, we tend to, especially now, we're close to January, people are going to want to overhaul their whole lifestyle and become totally different people, stop drinking, stop eating junk, start exercising every day. The most important part in building habits is really starting as small as you possibly can and start with something that you are 150% sure that you can do every single day. And if that's just, taking a multivitamin or drinking a glass of water, then start with that. Do not aim too high because you're going to set yourself up for disappointment. And when you start small and you can actually do the small thing every single day, you get positive reinforcement. You can be proud of yourself. You can tick it off and you say, wow, I did that. I had an extra glass of water 7 days in a row. So now I can maybe move on to something else, build on that, stack the habits. Um, but if you start too ambitiously or with this idea of a big overhaul, most of the time you're going to crash and burn. I think starting small is the most important, the best thing that you can do for yourself, and then start simple too. There's a lot of complex and complicated stuff out there. I mentioned it before. When basically we know that we should just drink a lot of water, eat our vegetables, and move as much as we can. So small and simple is the safest way to build good health habits.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also say that trying to eat healthy is sort of the worst strategy people can have when they want to drop fat and become more leaner and strong, my friend. So tell me why making the sudden shifts in our eating habits is the sort of the worst strategy we can have, and how do we reverse that?
Yeah, it's one of my pet peeves, so to speak, because I hear so many women tell me that they're just trying to eat healthy. And the first problem with that sentence is the word trying, because if your goal is trying, then you've already achieved it, because trying is, yeah, you've tried, but maybe you didn't do it, but you tried. So it's not clear enough. It's not challenging enough to say my goal is to try to eat healthy. And then eating healthy is so vague that it cannot give you the right guidance. What does it even mean when you say eating healthy? It's something totally different for an elite athlete who runs 50 kilometers every day, or someone who has a sedentary desk job. It's really, you want to be very, very specific with all your habits and with your eating goals. Vague thing like eating healthy, you could stuff yourself with vegan lasagna, for example, or gluten-free pie. It's still lasagna and it's still pie. So, you can tell yourself or fool yourself with by saying, oh, I'm eating healthy, when actually you haven't really changed your habits. You might have replaced a comfort food with a different version of a comfort food, but it's not specific to your goal. When you want to lose weight, you need to really identify your goal and then find the specific foods that will help you get there, and not just general eating healthy, because it will keep you running in circles and not really get you anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kim, if I ask you to define the word commitment from a consistent standpoint, whether it be health wise or in life, how do you think you would define the term consistent commitment?
I think it's the willingness to show up every single day. And when I say willingness to show up, I say that on purpose. So, it could be that life totally gets in the way and you can't actually do the thing that you wanted to do. But when you show up and you're willing to show up every day, then you are there and you are connected in your mind to the process, which is the most important part. And this connection to this process that you commit to will keep you coming back and showing up every day, even when there's a really, really bad day where you can't do everything you wanted to do. But your willingness to show up, I think, is really the best definition of consistent commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kim, living with a disability yourself for as long as you have, and as long as I have, I'm always interested to ask people like myself and who have lived similar circumstances their idea or definition of inclusion and breaking down barriers to access. So, how would you define inclusion and really breaking down barriers to access?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's the first part of this is, of course, to break down physical barriers. And where I live in Spain, we're pretty advanced. So, many many areas are accessible. Even older buildings, they are changed, they're renovated. So the physical barriers are disappearing, which is great. And then the other barriers, I can only speak from my experience with my weightlifting friends, because I train in a gym where we have a great section of power lifters, people with disabilities who are lifting. And my feeling is that the greatest gift of inclusion that we can give is, just to view them as our normal colleagues. They train like we train. There's no awkwardness around this. We joke together, we train together. Everybody has their problems, and I think to just see them as human beings as they are, and not worry, for example, worry about saying something weird, or not worry about doing something clumsy. I think that's something that's really important, because that makes us feel that we're all in it together and we're all just the same. We're all humans and doing what we can in our situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kim, my final question for you today has to do with the concept of legacy and how you want your individual and personal and professional legacy to be defined.
Well, I would like to think that I made a difference in the world, and that the people that I came in contact with felt that it was beneficial, or that was enriching their lives in whichever way. I don't have a big ambition like leaving a legacy. Everybody's going to talk about Kim's famous muscle building program or anything. I'd love for my legacy to be, when people remember meeting me, that they think, yeah, that was a good situation. That was something I would not want to have missed, meeting that person, meeting Kim.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Kim, tell me, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Well, there's two ways. They can just shoot me an email at kim@kimrahir.com, or go to my website, which is also kimrahir.com. And I actually have an assessment tool on there if they want to find out how their health is doing, health and strength. They can download that free tool, and it's from a perspective of deep health. So it's not about knocking out push-ups. And this, can give you a great starting point if you want to change something about your health and fitness.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kim, I thoroughly enjoyed spending a few minutes with you talking about women's health, inclusion, life, and everything in between here. work in the space of women's health and time on my behalf is most appreciated. And I want to thank you for being here and engaging in conversation with me today.
I want to thank you for having me. It was really a great chat, and loved your questions. Very insightful and thoughtful, and it's really, really great to have that conversation.